It was the night their secret ended. Amara, busy, Tenny, cold and shivering behind a broken hotel window, with flashlights flashing through the dark hallways, the three girls knew everything was over. Outside, a teacher's voice shouted their names. One of them started to cry. Another whispered, "We're finished." This story is filled with so much emotions and suspense you are about to watch. Learn from this. The school was in a quiet village called Ojani. It had broken fences and a dusty football field, but the teachers were strict. The principal, Madame Okoro, never smiled. She believed school was a sacred place, not a playground. Among the students were three girls who felt differently. Their names were Amara, Bizi, and Tenny. They were in senior secondary school too. They wore their uniforms well, answered in class, and walked like model students. But they were hiding a dark plan. One Friday afternoon, the school bell rang for the weekend. Other students were rushing home. But Amara whispered to the others, "Let's go now." They sneaked through the back gate, their backpacks stuffed with clothes and makeup. They boarded a bike to town and ended up at a cheap hotel called Paradise Nest. The man at the front desk didn't ask questions. He just looked them over and gave them room 6. It smelled like smoke and old perfume, but the girls laughed and threw themselves on the bed. The hotel became their second school. They'd lie to their parents and say they were staying late for extra lessons. In truth, they wore tight dresses and took pictures in front of the mirror. They spent hours on Instagram and TikTok. Sometimes, men came to their room. Older men. Tenny was the first to cry after one of the men left. "This doesn't feel right," she said. But Amara just laughed. "Do you want to be poor forever?" she asked. "Let them pay. We're not doing anything wrong." Back at school on Monday, Madame Okoro stared at the three girls during assembly. "Some of you think we don't know what is happening," she said. "But we do. And when the time comes, we will act." The girls didn't know if she was talking about them. But something in her voice made them uneasy. Bizi started to sweat. Amara, however, stayed calm. "She's just bluffing," she said. "We're too smart to be caught." A boy named Sei had seen the girls at the hotel one evening. He had come to deliver food to someone and was shocked to see schoolgirls in makeup flirting with old men. He didn't say anything then. But he told his friend Fola. Fola told another person. Soon, whispers filled the school. "Did you hear about the girls who go to hotels on weekends?" Nobody said their names, but the rumors grew louder. One teacher told Madame Okoro, and she decided to act. The next Friday, Amara, Bizi, and Tenny followed the same plan. This time, a teacher named Mr. Ao followed them on a bike. He saw where they entered, wrote down the hotel name, and returned to report. That night, Madame Okoro called 2 policemen and 3 male teachers. They wore plain clothes and carried torches. They planned to storm the hotel. "No more games," she said. "We catch them tonight." In room 6, the girls had just finished dressing when they heard heavy footsteps. A knock came at the door. Amara peeked through the peephole. "Police!" she screamed. They turned off the lights and tried to hide. Bizi ran into the bathroom. Tenny squeezed under the bed. Amara stood frozen. Then the door burst open. Flashlights blinded their eyes. One teacher shouted, "Amara, Bizi, Tenny, you are finished." The girls were dragged out in nightclothes. Other hotel guests peeped through doors. A crowd gathered outside. Some took videos. The teachers didn't speak. The policemen looked angry. They were taken back to school immediately. Madame Okoro stood by the gate, arms folded. "You have brought shame to this school and your families," she said. "And now the whole world will know." By Saturday morning, pictures and videos of the girls being dragged out of the hotel had spread across phones in the village. Everyone had seen it. Mothers, fathers, teachers, even younger students. At church the next day, no one talked to their families. People stared, shook their heads, and whispered, Amara's mother fainted after someone showed her the video. Beezy's father locked his gate and told visitors to go away. Tenny's aunt said, "She will not step into this house again." On Monday, the girls were called to the principal's office one by one. Madam Okoro didn't raise her voice. She just sat with the police officer beside her and asked simple questions. How long? How many times? Who else is involved? Amara stayed proud and said nothing at first. But when she saw that Beezy had already confessed, she broke down. She cried hard, begging them not to call her mother again. Tenny only nodded when asked questions. Her face was blank, like someone in a dream. After a long staff meeting, the school decided to suspend the girls for 3 months. They need time to think about what they've done, Madam Okoro said. If they return, it will be under serious supervision. Letters were sent to their homes. The letters said the girls had dishonored the name of the school and must stay away until further notice. For the girls, this was worse than punishment. They were now seen as examples of what not to be. At home, life became silent. No one looked at them. Amara's phone was taken away. She sat in her room and stared at the ceiling. Beezy's younger brother called her hotel girl by mistake, and she slapped him. Their mother wept for 2 days. Tenny's aunt refused to speak to her. She cleaned the house in silence and cooked food for only herself. One night, Tenny ran to the backyard and cried until her body shook. She whispered, "God, please help me. I didn't know it would be like this." Back in school, boys in the class joked about the girls. They laughed and said things like, "Are they hiring at Paradise Nest?" Or SS2 girls are now hotel managers. But one boy, Sei, the one who had seen them first, didn't laugh. He felt guilty. He had not meant to ruin their lives. He only told Fola out of shock. Now everything had gone too far. He went to Mr. Ao and said, "Sir, is there a way to help them?" 2 weeks into their suspension, a counselor from the city came to see the girls. Her name was Auntie Funmi. She wore simple clothes and sat with them one by one. "Tell me the truth," she said. "No shame. Just speak." The girls told her everything. How it started, why they did it, how they felt after. Auntie Funmi didn't shout or frown. She just listened. When they finished, she said, "You made a big mistake. But you are not finished. You can still change." When the school allowed the girls to return, everything had changed. They were no longer allowed to bring phones. They had to report to the principal's office every morning and afternoon. They sat apart from other students in class. Some students laughed behind their backs. Others stayed silent. But one girl, Peace, sat beside Tenny and said, "You can still make it." It was the first kind word Tenny had heard in weeks. One day, as the girls sat under the mango tree during break, a black car pulled up outside the gate. A man stepped out and called Amara's name. "He's from town," he said. "I brought you a gift." Amara froze. It was one of the men from Paradise Nest. He smiled like nothing had happened. "You still remember me?" he asked. Before Amara could answer, Madam Okoro appeared beside her. "Go back to your class," she said. Then she turned to the man. "And you, leave now before I call the police." One morning, Beezy found a folded note under the bathroom sink. It had her name on it. Inside was a short message. "I know what you did. If you don't want everyone to see more pictures, come to the old science lab at break. Come alone." Beezy's hands started to shake. She didn't tell Amara or Tenny. She just stared at the paper for a long time. Then, as the bell rang for break, she quietly slipped away toward the old science lab. Inside the dusty lab, a boy from SS3 was waiting. His name was Yinka. He smiled at her with his teeth half showing. "You looked good in those hotel pictures," he said. "I have more. You were careless." Beezy froze. "What do you want?" Yinka leaned closer. "One thing. Just one night. Or I'll make sure the whole school sees everything." Beezy ran out, crying. She didn't look back. She ran straight to Madame Okoro's office, even though she was scared. For once, she didn't care about being punished. She just wanted it to stop. The school searched Yinka's bag. At first, they found nothing. But Mr. Ao noticed something odd in his shoe. Beneath the sole was a small phone with no password. On it were many pictures, videos, and even saved chats with other students. Yinka had been watching and collecting things for months, waiting to use them. When they asked how he got the pictures, he smirked and said, "Everyone has secrets. I just pay attention." At home that evening, Amara couldn't sleep. "We have to do something," she whispered to the others. "Not just to save ourselves. There are other girls. He's done this before." So they wrote letters to Madame Okoro, explaining everything. They even wrote the names of 3 other girls Yinka had blackmailed. It was a risk, but they didn't want more people to suffer. Madame Okoro didn't speak when she read the letters. She just folded them slowly, nodded, and said, "Thank you." The next Monday, during morning assembly, Madame Okoro did something nobody expected. She called Yinka to the front. She read out his crimes like a list: blackmail, threats, spying, misuse of phones. The whole school went silent. Even the birds stopped chirping. Then she looked up and said, "This boy used shame as a weapon. But now, shame has caught him." Yinka was expelled that day. His parents were called. His name was removed from the school register forever. The girls stood taller after that day. Not because they were proud, but because they had survived. They no longer hid. They walked in the sunlight, heads high, even when others stared. Peace, the girl who had once spoken kindly to Tenny, joined their group during lunch. Other girls slowly followed. Not everyone forgave them, but some did. That was enough. Amara said one day, "We didn't pass a test with books, but we passed something harder. And we're still here." 3 weeks before the school's final exams, the girls received white envelopes. Inside each was a fancy card with gold writing. "You are invited to a private youth event. Guest speakers, refreshments, and career mentors. Paradise Nest Hotel Hall A. Saturday, 12 p.m. sharp." The girls stared at each other. Paradise Nest again. Tenny crushed her card. "Is this a joke?" But Amara looked closer. At the bottom of the card, in small print, was a strange signature. F.A. She recognized it immediately. It was the same signature from an old comment on one of her Instagram pictures, one that had led to everything. They told Madame Okoro about the invitation. She told them to stay away. "Nothing good will happen there," she warned. "There are traps that wear fine clothes and speak gentle words." But Amara couldn't let it go. "What if it's a setup for other girls?" she asked. "What if someone else walks into what we escaped?" So they made a plan. They would go, not as guests, but as watchers. Silent, careful, ready. On Saturday, they dressed simply. No makeup, no flashy shoes. They entered Paradise Nest through the back gate and waited near the hallway leading to Hall A. Inside, the hotel had been redecorated with balloons, ribbons, and speakers playing soft music. About a dozen girls were already seated. All were between 14 and 17 years old. None of them looked sure of where they were. Then he walked in. It was the smooth-talking man from their past. The one who used to bring gifts, whisper promises, and vanish. His name was Felix Adissa, F.A. Felix stood before the group and smiled. "Welcome, future leaders," he said. "I'm here to help you unlock your potential. Tonight, we start with a small interview session. Just you and me. One by one." That's when Tenny stood up. She pushed open the door from the side and stepped into the light. "That's enough," she said. "We know what this is. It's not mentorship. It's a lie." Felix's face changed instantly, from smiling to cold. But before he could speak, Amara pulled out her phone. "We've recorded everything," she said. "And guess what? This time, the police are already outside." Felix tried to run, but the hotel doors were blocked. Two plainclothes officers walked in. The girls had already tipped them off with help from Madame Okoro and Auntie Funmi. The other young girls in the room looked confused and scared. Beezy walked to them gently and said, "He lied to us once too, but not anymore. You're safe now." The police arrested Felix on the spot. His old crimes and new plans were exposed. This time, the law caught up with him, for good. Back in school, the story spread again. But this time, not as gossip. It was told with pride. "They stopped a predator," a teacher said. "They turned their shame into power." The principal called a special assembly. She didn't say much. Just this. "Let it be known," Madame Okoro said, "that Amara, Beezy, and Tenny are no longer remembered as the bad girls who left school for a hotel. They are now the girls who returned and fought back." The students clapped. For once, the claps were not mocking. They were real. Amara is studying social work at a college in Ibadan. She says she wants to help girls like the one she used to be. Lost, scared, pretending to be bold. She doesn't hide her past anymore. In fact, she tells her story at youth seminars. "If I don't speak, others will fall into silence," she says. Beezy is learning fashion design. Her dream is to open a shop called Thread of Truth. She says stitching helped her heal. "When I sew, I feel like I'm building a better version of me," she tells her customers. Tenny now works with a group that rescues girls from trafficking rings. She doesn't say much about what happened to her, but she speaks when it matters. "I can't change what happened," she says. "But I can stand in the way when it's about to happen to someone else." They don't call themselves survivors. They call themselves witnesses. Not just of what happened to them, but of what happens every day in towns and villages like Ojani. They carry memories, some painful, some sharp, some quiet. They carry the stares from people who still whisper behind their backs. They carry the regret of the choices they made, and the pride that they didn't stay stuck in them. But most of all, they carry a message, one they now share with other girls at every chance they get. You can fall hard. You can make a mess. But if you stand back up and refuse to hide, the world will stop laughing and start listening. And in the end, that's what they became. Not bad girls. Brave ones.